What's up everybody, my name's Chance, and today we're going to be picking up where we left off yesterday, continuing on the War of the Spark spoilers or card reveals and the breakdown. Today we're going to be going through all of the mono red, all of the mono green, and then we'll be hitting on the multicolored and the special land coming out with the sets. So yeah, should be fun, and we'll go ahead and hop right in. Okay, so here we are on Crop Invader, 3 mana creature, zombie minotaur warrior. It is going to be coming in at a common. As long as it's your turn, on Crop Invader has first strike. Okay, so 2/2 has first strike for 3 mana. Not terrible in limited. You can pay 1 mana, sacrifice another creature. On Crop Invader gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Okay, so not bad. Not bad for limited, I should say. It could be a card that's in a play around deck with sacrifice, I guess. Yeah, past it being okay in limited, I don't see it going too far in constructed. So on Crop Invader, decent filler for limited, we'll say. Decent filler. Alrighty, next up is going to be Burning Prophet. 2 mana, human wizard. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Burning Prophet gets +1/+0 until end of turn, then scry 1. Again, not that fantastic, but it is just a common. Comes down as a 1/3. So cast 2 spells in a turn, you get to scry twice, and this creature goes up to a 3/3. I mean, for 2 mana, it's not terrible, right? It's a decent defender early, 1/3, and I'm talking about for limited, not really constructed. I don't see anybody playing this in constructed really, unless they're trying to force a wizard synergy. And this just so happens to be one of the only wizards they have. But yeah, not terrible, not great. Again, probably more focused on limited. Next, we're going to be moving on to Graham Initiate. It's going to cost one solo red mana. It's a zombie warrior. Has first strike as well. So, okay, a 1/1 with first strike for 1 mana. That's not terrible, honestly. When Graham Initiate dies, amass 1. Okay, so this card could be pretty reasonable in limited. Could be pretty reasonable in constructed as well, depending on how strong Amass actually ends up being. We haven't seen all the cards from the set yet, of course, so still a lot of room to be debated upon, but if Amass is good, then this card could be fantastic. It amasses, it has first strike, it's just like a pretty solid common card, right? So yeah, Grim Initiate, be looking out for that in the future. Next up is going to be Honor the God Pharaoh, if it'll go there. Maybe. I'm not quite sure why War of the Spark is taking so long to load, but we'll move on nonetheless. So Honor the God Pharaoh is going to be 3 mana, sorcery, another common. A lot of these cards that they've already revealed are commons, as you know, commons don't tend to be that big of a deal. As an additional cost to cast this spell, discard a card. Okay, so kind of like the draw card we already have in red, except this one draw 2 cards, amass 1. So yeah, essentially the same thing as the 2 mana, discard a card, draw 2 cards, except this one also amasses 1. So for a common, not fantastic, but it's basically some card looting. You discard 1, you draw 2, you amass 1. So again, more play around for amass. It could be alright. Honor the God Pharaoh. Alright, and this next one seems to be in German. Okay, no, it got translated over. That's odd. In the main screen there, y'all saw it was all in German. Nonetheless, Dreadhorde Arcanist, 2 mana, zombie wizard. This is awesome how many zombies they're adding, honestly. Nonetheless, comes down with trample as a 1/3. That's odd. Nonetheless, whenever Dreadhorde Arcanist attacks, you may cast target instant or sorcery card with converted mana cost less than or equal to Dreadhorde Arcanist power from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. That card would be put into your graveyard this turn, exile it instead. Okay, so this is going to be a card that you're going to want to enchant or buff up in some way with combat tricks or whatnot. It is a rare as well. Wow. Okay, so this will be like in an enchantment deck, because otherwise the trample doesn't really matter. There's got to be something else to the set, right? Something else to give this card some oomph, right? Because a 1/3, giving it trample doesn't really do anything unless you buff it up. But then once you buff it up, you know, then you can start casting some pretty awesome instant and sorcery spells. You can, and you don't have to pay their cost. Yeah, this card could be really good if you get it buffed up and get it to stay on the board. So 1/3 Dreadhorde Arcanist. Alright, it's pretty alright if you can buff it. So yeah, we'll move on to Neheb, I believe that's correct. Dreadhorde Champion. So 4 mana, does require 2 red solo mana. It is a legendary creature, zombie minotaur warrior. So we're getting a whole lot more minotaurs and a whole lot more zombies, which is fantastic because I enjoy tribals, and looks like the minotaur tribal just opened up, and zombies have always been open, but now they seem to be even stronger. Nonetheless, it is going to have trample. Whenever Neheb Dreadhorde Champion deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, you may discard any number of cards. If you do, draw that many cards and add that much red mana. Oh, wow. Until end of turn, you don't lose this mana as steps and phases end. So that's pretty awesome that you don't lose the mana across steps and phases. So you can do it in your first main phase, and if you draw a card that might be good to play after you've attacked, you know, you can still have the mana for it afterwards. It is a 5/4 with trample, so yeah, pretty good, and it's a rare, pretty good legendary creature there. Could be very interesting to see what kind of deck it works into, honestly. Mono red though seems like it could be packing a little bit more of a punch instead of just being straight up aggro, which is nice to see. It's really nice. So we're gonna be moving on to a 1 mana Samut, I don't know. Samut Sprint. It is gonna be a common instant card. Target creature gains +2/+1 and gains haste until end of turn. Scry 1. That's really strong. For like a combat trick, that's really strong, right? 1 mana, give a creature haste. Already, like, decent. We already have cards like that. I believe it gives them +1/+1 in haste. This gives them +2/+1 in haste and allows you to scry. You could probably see this getting played in limited, for sure, in like Mardu decks or Rakdos. Rakdos seems like it can be pretty good. Yeah, so Samut Sprint, probably going to be a filler, but a pretty good filler at that. Now we'll get on to our first mono red planeswalker. Hopefully it'll load up so I can show you guys and girls and people of all sorts. The card a little bit bigger, but for some reason, again, my computer's going a little bit slower. Maybe it's the internet. Nonetheless, Tibalt Rakish Instigator is going to be 3 mana, uncommon planeswalker, so it's only going to have 1 ability. But yeah, your opponent can't gain life is this card's static ability, which is interesting because Wizards released a card very similar. I think it was either 3 or 4 mana as well, and it was a dinosaur, and essentially it had that 1 solo ability on it. Your opponents can't gain life, and it ended up getting banned out. So I'm interested to see if this one will actually survive for 3 mana and uncommon. It just seems like it makes mono red like really good, right? You can -2 them and create a 1/1 red devil creature token with whenever this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. So essentially you're creating a Candlelight themed. So, and he does come down with 5 loyalty, but again, the whole static ability, your opponents can't gain life. That's kind of crazy for an uncommon, right? That makes dealing with mono red a bit harder, a bit tougher, because then you have to have ways to deal with either the planeswalker and deal with it quickly, as well as gaining the life / dealing with the rest of mono red's tools, or you just have to have already gained the life or be quicker than mono red, since this will obviously slow down the mono red deck. Maybe mono red just doesn't even fuck with it. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. This set is opening so many like different doorways and different decks to be made. I'm really happy and really excited for it actually. Nonetheless, we'll move on to Tibalt's Rager. So 2 mana, devil creature, 1/2. Whenever it enters the battlefield, it is going to be uncommon. When Tibalt's Rager dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. So for 2 mana, come down as a 1/2, not fantastic. For a 2 mana sink, Tibalt's Rager gets +2/+0 until end of turn. So this is probably going to be a limited pickup, and it'll more than likely be one that's just there to round out the deck. Like, hey, I need a 2 mana creature, Tibalt's Rager, not bad. You know, it does have a mana sink, and in limited, if you can hit that mana sink 2-3 times and get them up to 5 damage, you're dealing 5 damage with a 2 mana creature. Pretty worth. But past that limited scenario, probably not that good. So that's gonna be all of the mono red that they have released or spoiled thus far. Now we'll move on to the mono green. Starting us off, we have Arlen's Wolf, 3 mana creature wolf. Arlen's Wolf can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less, and it comes down as a 3/2. So for 3 mana, common card. Not bad for limited, not bad at all. Constructed, you might see some player rounds with Arlen's Wolf with this Planeswalker right here, Arlen, Voice of the Pact, Voice of the Pact, which comes down for 6 mana. She is uncommon. Each creature you control that's a wolf or werewolf enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. You can also -2 her and create a 2/2 green wolf creature token. So she also comes down with 7 loyalty, which is a little bit more for an uncommon Planeswalker to have. Usually they're around 5, 4, somewhere in that region. Even some of them get down to 3. So, but yeah, just solely a play around Planeswalker, right? Because you're not going to be playing her in any other deck minus a wolf/werewolf deck. So yeah, and I'm interested to play a wolf tribal, a wolf-werewolf tribal. I guess this will be the card that I pick up to do it with. Although 6 mana is really steep, right? Like Arlen's Wolf's only 3 mana, so you should have Arlen's Wolf down long before you have Arlen, Voice of the Pact. So you won't have a chance to get the counter on it. I don't know. Just seems like she's a bit slow, but again, it is uncommon, so there's got to be that drawback. Otherwise, you know, why not just make her a mythic rare? So yeah, moving on, we'll hit our instant common, Giant Growth. This reminds me of a lot of, what was it, Titanic Growth or Wild Growth, something like that. Already in mono green. I think it's basically 2 mana, and your creature gets +4/+4 until end of turn. This is essentially knock off one of the +1/+1s and 1 mana. So Giant Growth is going to be instant common. Target creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn. So limited, it'll be a deck rounder. Constructed, you might see it in some like mono green aggro if that tries to rear its head. But yeah, we'll move on to our second Planeswalker of the mono green set, and it's Yang. I think that's Zhang Yangu. Whatever. The pronunciation's probably definitely wrong. Definitely. Zhang Yangu Wildcrafter. Nonetheless, comes down for 3 mana. He is going to be uncommon. Each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it has tap and add 1 mana of any color. So that's really interesting. That means those Selesnya token decks are going to be pretty good if you can get some counters on them. So like Song of Freyalise on a bunch of Supporlings, then they permanently have the tap and add 1 mana, so your mana pool just becomes huge, right? You can also minus Yang, or Zhang, however you say it, -1, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. So, and again, this one has 3 life. That's a bit closer to what you see for uncommons. So yeah, not terrible. Probably more of a limited type card, but I could see it being used in constructed in some weird token counter deck. Nonetheless, we'll move on to Mao Loyal Companion. It's going to be a legendary hound. So note that this doesn't work in that wolf or werewolf tribal, which is unfortunate, but it is going to be an uncommon. Comes down as a 3/3 with trample and vigilance, so already okay for 4 mana, right? Trample, vigilance, 3/3. If one or more +1/+1 counters would be put on Mao, whatever, Loyal Companion, that many +1/+1/+1 counters are put on it instead. So if you have a consistent way to put +1/+1 counters on Mou, say Simic Ascendancy, or what is it, Winged Temple of Arazka, or you guys know the green-blue enchantment that was here before Simic Ascendancy. That's Madonnas Club, I think. Madonnas Club, yeah. So if you have a card like that, right, it's gonna be really good on Mous, because every time you're gonna go put a 1/+1/+1 counter, you're gonna put 2 +1/+1 counters. So you're essentially getting double the effect from all of your 1/+1/+1 counters. Now, if you play something that gives your creature like, you know, 2 or 3 +1/+1 counters, you're still only gonna get the 1 additional +1/+1 counter on top of that. Sorry. Explaining this card is like very tongue-tying and confusing because there's so many 1+1s. Nonetheless, Mou Loyal Companion, really good card actually. Could easily become a play around for like a Simic Ascendancy, Madonnas Club type deck. 4 mana, not very expensive. Does have trample, does have vigilance, so it's already kind of a threat whenever it comes down and you buff it up once, right? Say you throw it down, you already have Madonnas Club because you threw it down on turn 3. Whenever this card comes down, it's going to come down essentially as a 5/5, because whenever Madonnas Club triggers at the beginning of your combat phase, you're going to put it on this this hound. Obviously, I can't talk, I'm sorry. I was going to say creature and hound, so it almost came out as crown. Nonetheless, you're going to put it on this hound, and he's going to immediately go up to, or she, not quite sure. They're going to immediately go up to a 5/5 with trample and vigilance for 4 mana, which is crazy good value, right? So then we'll move on to Paradise Druid, which seems to have a little bit of special card art with it. It is going to be an Elf Druid. Paradise Druid has hexproof as long as it's untapped. So, and you can tap it to add 1 mana of any color. It's going to be uncommon, comes down as a 2/1. That's interesting. It gives mono green a way to ramp around mono red, right? Most of the time you play mono green up against mono red, they're just going to shock your elves, and you're not really going to get stuff out past, you know, you have to play the lands and finally get there to play it as you would normally. So Paradise Druid could be interesting to see if it's picked up or if people value it. Maybe not though, because, you know, as soon as you tap it, then they can kill it. So it's sort of like a one-time saving grace, I guess. I don't know. Nonetheless, we'll move on to our green Planeswalker here. It is going to be rare version of Vivian. It's going to be Vivian, Champion of the Wilds. She's only going to cost 3 mana, which is extremely cheap for a Planeswalker. You may cast creature spells as though they had flash. So really good static effect there. All of your creatures basically have flash, can come down at instant speed. For +1 until your next turn, up to 1 target creature gains vigilance and reach, which is fantastic for dealing with those high flying decks, mono blue, the Izzet Drakes, the Jund Dragons, that kind of stuff, if you're playing mono green. So then you can also -2 and look at the top 3 cards of your library, exile 1 face down and put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. For as long as it remains exiled, you may look at that card and you may cast it if it's a creature. So the face down is actually important because you can still look at it, you can still see what it is. So it's not like it's losing you knowledge. However, your opponent can't go into your exile pile and look at it and say, okay, so this is, you know, this is the kind of deck they're playing, this is the kind of creature they have waiting to come onto the field. Can't do it. You know, they won't be able to get any bit of a preview, so seems really good. Vivian, Champion of the Wilds. Again, rare Planeswalker, comes down with 4 loyalty. Next, we'll move on to Vivian's Arcbow, and I'm actually really excited for all these legendary artifacts that they're coming out with. So this is going to be a rare legendary artifact, as I just mentioned, and it's going to be a pay X and tap artifact. You're going to discard a card, look at the top X cards of your library. You may put a creature card with converted mana cost X or less from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest onto the bottom of your library in a random order. So this is like you're playing mono green, you have the artifact down. I almost called it an enchantment. You have the artifact down and you have 0 creatures in hand, but you really want to hit one, you just pay all your mana and tap it, and you know, you got 5 mana, you're going to dig 5 cards, so pretty good chance that you're going to hit a creature, and you're going to be able to cast out a creature with 5 mana or less for its converted mana cost. And in mono green, that gives you a doorway to like Stillleaf Champions, Beast Whisperers, like a whole, hell, you could even hit a Tindershoot with 5 mana, you know. So Vivian's Arcbow, really spicy, and I can't wait to make some play arounds with this for sure. Seems like an excellent card. So we'll move on to the last mono green color of the release cards thus far. This is going to be Vivian's Grizzly, coming down for 3 mana as a common, and it is going to be a Bear Spirit. Comes in with 2/3 on its attack and block. And for 4 mana, you can look at the top card of your library. If it's a creature or planeswalker, you may reveal it and put it into your hand. If you don't put the card into your hand, put it on the bottom of your library. Okay, so this is definitely going to be a limited pickup. And it'll be basically a limited filler is what I'm thinking. Oh, well actually that's pretty good for limited, right? Pay 4 mana, you can essentially draw a card if need be. Comes down as a 2/3 for 3 mana. That's not terrible, honestly. So yeah, Vivian's Grizzly. I could definitely see it getting some play in limited. So we'll move on to the Azorius multicolor spells first. And this is a very interesting one, I thought, because it means all those Esper and all the Azorius and all the Bont control decks now have something that just sort of says no to everything, right? We're not going to have those instances in the Mythic Championships where people are like battling over spells and wondering if it's a good idea to counter a counter, right? So, Dovin's Veto costs 1 white mana, 1 blue mana, instant speed. This spell can't be countered, and it counters target non-creature spell. So, you can't counter creature spells and expect it not to get countered, but you can counter a non-creature spell, and this spell can't be countered, so it's essentially, you know, unstoppable, which means the control decks just got a bit tougher. Dovin's Veto. Then we'll move on to an Azorius Planeswalker, Teferi Time Raveler. He is going to be a rare, costs 3 mana, 1 colorless, 1 white, 1 blue. Each opponent can't cast spells, or can cast spells only any time they could cast a sorcery. So essentially you're negating all instant speed spells, which is unfortunate. Does make things a bit tougher, and for 3 mana, you know, definitely see this getting picked up in those control decks. +1 until your next turn, you may cast sorcery spells as though they had flash. So essentially, you're negating all of your opponent's instant spells, and you're turning all of your spells into instant spells, because this makes your sorcery spells basically instances. So yeah, then you can -3 and return up to 1 target artifact, creature, or enchantment to its owner's hand and draw a card. So Teferi Time Raveler just going to be coming down to dampen or to blanket the control your opponent has. I don't know how to explain it. Basically, he's just like another piece in the control puzzle, right? You see him coming down, you know that wall is going to almost be built, and it's going to be very hard to get in there and deal damage with something like Teferi Time Raveler on board. So, moving us along, we have a board wipe, which is a very interesting, very costly board wipe, but it is it is a board wipe and an awesome one at that nonetheless. So Time Wipe is going to be 5 mana, two of whatever color, then it costs 2 white mana and 1 blue. It is going to be a rare sorcery speed card. So the effect of this card is return a creature you control to its owner's hand, then destroy all creatures. So pretty fantastic. All in all, pretty fantastic. It means those board wipes before, like Cleansing Nova, where you're like, well, fuck it, I gotta lose one, but at least I'm dealing with all the other ones. No longer a problem. Now you just return your most valuable creature, or a creature that hasn't entered the battlefield effect, to your hand, kill everything else, and you know, if you have enough mana, you play the creature right back down. If not, you wait till next turn. But yeah, Time Wipe. Really interesting board wipe. That's going to do it for all of the Azorius colors. Now we're going to be going into the Damier multicolored cards that have been released. So kicking us off, we have Gleaming Overseer coming down for 3 mana. He or she is going to be a zombie wizard. Comes down as 1/4, and it is going to be uncommon. So when Gleaming Overseer enters the battlefield, amass 1. So it's just going to be stacking on the amass. And then furthermore, zombie tokens you control have hexproof and menace. That's awesome. For an uncommon card, giving your zombie tokens hexproof would be awesome, considering, you know, the amount of cards that are going to be playing around zombies come this set. But the fact that you're giving them hexproof and menace, that could be really scary. This could be a card that you see a lot of. Gleaming Overseer. And it looks like a Grixis zombie deck is honestly coming together quite nicely, right? And I understand that zombies are supposed to be one of Nico Bolas's, wasn't that his tactic? Isn't that the whole thing that's going on in the story or the lore? He's amassing an army of zombies. So yeah, Gleaming Overseer seems nice. And I could definitely see Grixis zombies coming to life. So we'll move on to the Damier Planeswalker that's coming out. Tezzeret, Master of the Bridge. It is going to be a mythic rare, and Tezzeret is going to be a really awesome card. So creature and Planeswalker spells you cast have affinity for artifacts. So essentially, what's the best way to explain this? For every artifact you have on the field, the cost of creatures and Planeswalkers is going to be 1 less. So say we have a Tezzeret down and we have 3 treasure artifact tokens. So that's 3 artifacts on the field. Say we have a Carnage Tyrant. I don't know why we would be playing Abzan, or is that Abzan? No, that's Sultan. I don't know why we would be playing Tezzeret in a Sultan deck, but bear with me. So we have 3 treasure artifact tokens on the board. That's 3. It's going to minus 3 from the cost of our Carnage Tyrant. So Carnage Tyrant is going to go from a 6 mana card to a 3 mana card. So super awesome ability there. How effective or how long Tezzeret will actually last on the field is another thing to be discussed, but it is a really awesome static effect, and Wizards have already came out and said that this is going to be the only card with affinity in it. So don't go trying to make a whole affinity deck unless you have Tezzeret, because he's going to be the only card with the effect. So yeah, for the +2 effect, Tezzeret, Master of the Bridge, deals X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of artifacts you control. You gain X life. So this could be really awesome in an Esper token deck, where you have something like Smothering Tithe and Revel to Riches, or Revel in Riches, treasure maps, things like that, where you're just creating a whole lot of treasure tokens, right? You're going to be able to deal a whole lot of damage, heal a whole lot of life, and since you're going to have so many artifacts down because of all your treasures, you'll basically be able to cast all of your creatures out for free. So it seems really good. Like, this seems like a really awesome build around card, and like it could actually house some potential in the artifact deck industry. The artifact deck theme, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it seems really spicy. So moving along, you can also -3 him, return target artifact from your graveyard to your hand. So you got a Traxos in the graveyard, bring him back. You know, you get an Immortal Sun. I don't know why you'd be bringing an Immortal Sun back if you have a Tezzeret on the field. Point is, if you have an artifact that's, you know, costly in there, you want a -3, bring it back to your hand. There you go. It's pretty good effect. -8, exile the top 10 cards of your library. Put all artifact cards from among them onto the battlefield. So, again, this is gonna be, you're playing Traxos, and you're playing Meteor Golem, and you're playing these big artifact cards that are usually a little bit harder to get out, but since you have an affinity for artifacts, every artifact that you already have down is going to make them cost less. So yeah, Tezzeret just seems like a pure build around card. I haven't seen any of the artifacts that they've released thus far in the set, but I highly doubt you want to be picking him in draft unless you just want a copy of the card. So that's going to do it for the Damier color schemes for the cards that have been released. We'll move right on to the Rakdos, and kicking us off is another Planeswalker. Ongroth is going to be an uncommon Planeswalker. Ongroth, Captain of Chaos, coming down for 4 mana of either black or red. That is pretty interesting to note. Creatures you control have Menace as a static effect. That's, you know, that's okay. That's pretty good. For uncommon, 4 mana. That's split, mind you. Then you can -2 him and amass 2. He has 5 loyalty. So, all in all, solid. I'll call him solid. We're gonna assume that the amass and the proliferate effects are gonna do good / alright. You know, that they're not just gonna flop on their faces. We'll say that they'll do alright, so that way all of these cards that are strictly built around amassing, we're not just like, well, that's gonna suck because amass is gonna suck. You know, I like to go into things with like a very neutral / positive outlook on it. Like, it could do good, but realistically, will it? I don't know, but it could. So let's keep high hopes for the future. Moving along, we have a 2 mana Ongroth's Rampage. It is going to be an uncommon card, sorcery speed spell. I'm sorry, and then we can choose one. Target player sacrifices an artifact. Target player sacrifices a creature, or target player sacrifices a planeswalker. So most of the time whenever you see a sacrifice type effect, people are a little bit hesitant, right? Because if you choose to sacrifice a creature and your opponent has a bunch of tokens, chances are you're not going to be getting anything worth the 2 mana that you spent. However, if they only have 1 planeswalker, or if they have a crucial artifact on the field, this card becomes really good, and I think that it'll actually get picked up quite a bit in both limited and constructed, simply because of its, you know, 3 separate targetings. It's very cheap, it's very easy to get out, so yeah, probably gonna see Ongroth's Rampage come down in at least a couple. Maybe not top tier, but it's going to be in the decks that are up there because it has such a versatile effect and it's so cheap. It just makes those aggro decks a lot better. So, move on to another 2 mana cost creature, Dreadhorde Butcher. That sounds deadly. Looks really cool in the card art too. He has like this whole mace flail thing coming from the background, and it's on fire. Nonetheless, he is going to be a rare, or it's going to be a rare zombie warrior, which is very interesting for 2 mana. Does have haste, comes down as a 1/1. Ooh, a rare 1/1. So whenever Dreadhorde Butcher deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, put a +1/+1 counter on Dreadhorde Butcher. Well, that's awesome, right? So if you can manage to somehow get double strike on him, this Dreadhorde Butcher could really be a threat. So put a +1/+1 counter. So essentially he's going to be coming down, dealing the 1 damage, moving up to a 2/2 fairly quickly, right? Like, you're not going to play him and then attack into something that's going to kill him. So it seems like a super good limited card, and honestly could be very good in the Rakdos aggro. Let's see. Furthermore, whenever Dreadhorde Butcher dies, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. That's really strong. To any target. So you can hit their life points. Yeah, Dreadhorde Butcher, Rakdos aggro just got stronger. Just got a lot stronger. Then we have Widespread Brutality. So Widespread Brutality is a 4 mana, which is really, and it's really restricted as well. 1 black mana, 2 red. It's going to be a rare sorcery speed, already said that. Nonetheless, you're going to amass 2, then the army you amassed deals damage equal to its power to each non-army creature. Okay, so if you don't have an army already, this is going to deal 2 damage to every creature minus your army. If you do have an army, say you've already amassed 2 and you put 2 more +1/+1 counters, then it's going to deal 4 damage to every creature that's not your zombie army. So that's kind of interesting. It could be really good in a mass specific deck. But if you're not playing a mass, or if mass turns out to flop, then this card will as well. Hopefully it doesn't. I'm really enjoying all the amassing we're going to be able to do. But yeah, this card will solely depend on how good or bad a mass is. So moving us right down off of the Rakdos color scheme and into the Gruul color scheme for 1 card, we have Samut. So yeah, apparently that 1 mana card comes from this Planeswalker. I'm not quite sure what it is. It looks like they got 2 swords that are kind of electric-y. Seems interesting. Looks like he's battling either a zombie or a very Thanos-like creature right there, right? Because it's very purple. Nonetheless, Samut's going to come down for 4 mana. It's going to be uncommon, and that is 4 split mana, either red or green on the double. Creatures you control have haste, so wow, that could make those Gruul mid-range decks really strong, right? Then for -1, target creature gets +2/+1 and gains haste until end of turn and scry 1. Well, that seems a bit lazy. So they legit just took the effect off of, you know, that card we saw earlier and put it as his -1/-1. The thing that irritates me is the fact that it says gains haste until end of turn, right? I don't think there's ever a scenario in which case your creatures won't be able to gain haste because of his static effect, but then you'll be like, oh wait, I have this -1 effect that can gain them haste. Does that make sense? Like, just leave the haste off. Gains +2/+1 and scry 1. That's a perfectly fine -1 effect. You can use it 5 times before the Planeswalker dies, right? Just leave off the haste effect because it doesn't do anything. If they have an Immortal Sun, Planeswalker doesn't work anyways. So yeah, I'm not quite sure why they felt necessary to add in and gains haste until end of turn, because it shouldn't matter, right? Unless, well, I take that back. The only scenario I see it mattering is if you minus the Samut and either A, your opponent kills him, kills it, or you minus it and it was already on 1 loyalty, so you're essentially killing your Samut, so all of your creatures won't have haste, but that one last one will. But then again, if you played your creature while Samut was already down, it already has haste. Unless it loses haste whenever Samut leaves the battlefield. I don't know. It just seems like a weird effect. Nonetheless, we'll move on to our first Selesnya multicolored card of the set. Ajani the Great-Hearted. So for 4 mana, it is going to be a rare card. Creatures you control have vigilance. Well, that's a pretty awesome static effect, to be completely honest. And then for +1, you gain 3 life. And then for -2, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Holy hell! So this could work wonders. Hold up. Let's finish reading out the effect. On each creature you control, and a loyalty counter on each other Planeswalker you control. Okay, yeah, no. So I was right. This is fucking crazy. This is really good for 4 mana. What was the card we had just talked about earlier? For yeah, Yangu. I don't know. So he's going to work really good with Ajani, the Great-Hearted, because Ajani is going to be -2, put a +1/+1 counter on every creature, and then Zhang makes it to where all of those creatures that have the +1/+1 counter can then add mana for whatever color you want. So that seems really fun, really interesting. It is going to be a rare, so it's going to be a little bit more costly, but it seems like there's a lot of fun combos to be had there. So moving on from the Selesnya guild, we'll hop right into Orzhov. And first card up is Cruel Celebrant. So it is going to be a creature for 2 mana, uncommon. Whenever Cruel Celebrant or another creature or planeswalker you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Huh. So that's really good. It's essentially a 2 mana Vindictive Vampire, right? Because Vindictive has the same effect, except I think Vindictive is a 3/4, so also has less life. But it's going to be really good in those Aristocrat decks for sure, where you're trying to sacrifice creatures. And one interesting thing to note is it does include itself in its effect. So even whenever this card dies, you're going to get that 1 life dealt to them and 1 life gain, which may not seem like much, but in a Spectacle deck, that could be really, really good. So, moving on to our first Orzhov Planeswalker, we're going to have another version of Kaya. Kaya, Bane of the Dead. Going to cost 6 mana, 3 split between either white or black mana. It is going to be uncommon, so it comes down with 7 loyalty, and the static effect is your opponents and permanents your opponents control with hexproof can be the target of spells and abilities you control as though they didn't have hexproof. Well, that's really good for an uncommon. That's really good, right? And then -3, exile target creature. Wow. That is so much better than the uncommon 6 mana mono green creature we saw earlier, right? The other one, you can create werewolves and you have some cool synergies from, you know, in werewolves and wolves. Not that we have a whole lot of werewolves and wolves, but yeah, it was like, okay. But this 6 mana uncommon is really, really strong. Given that she lives, of course, but like that's a really strong effect. So, oh well, I guess we'll move on to the Is It card that we have been revealed, Invade the City. So for 3 mana, that is going to be an uncommon sorcery speed spell. And you amass X, where X is the number of instant and sorcery cards in your graveyard. Ooh. So in like an Is It Drake deck, this could amass you a lot, right? What is Terramander? Most people get to like 6 or 7 instant and sorcery spells in their graveyard with Terramander. Yeah, that's gonna be creating you a 7/7 or 6/6 zombie. That's huge. For 3 mana, you get a 6/6 zombie. That's huge. Yeah, so Grixis zombies seems very, very doable, which is awesome, right? I love zombies. I love Grixis. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it, Wizards. Give us all these fun cards. I enjoy it. So moving on to the Golgari guild colors, we have Vraska, Swarm's Eminence. It is going to be an uncommon planeswalker. Whenever a creature you control with Death Touch deals damage to a player or planeswalker, put a +1/+1 counter on that creature. Okay, so this will be very interesting for zombies, right? Because things like Death Baron give all of your zombies +1/+1 and Death Touch, so then all of your zombies can attack and get some +1/+1 counters on it. So it seems like it could be very spicy in a constructed deck. And then -2, create a 1/1 black assassin creature token with Death Touch. Okay, so right there, it gives you the very thing you need to start building the creature up. And whenever this creature deals damage to a planeswalker, destroy that planeswalker. Okay, so it has Death Touch to planeswalkers as well. That could be very interesting, could be very strong as well. And interesting to note, it says whenever this creature deals damage to a planeswalker. It doesn't say combat damage, it says damage. So, like a Rabid Bite, dead. That's a planeswalker, dead. And you didn't even have to attack them. That's interesting, that's strong. For an uncommon, that's pretty strong. And then we have our first Simic planeswalker of the set. Kiora Behemoth Beckoner. Coming down as uncommon, 7 loyalty, which is a lot. And whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. Okay. And then -1, untap target permanent. Oh. Well, that could be really good, right? Untap target permanent? Loyalty 7, so you can do it 7 times. You can untap lands or enchantments or creatures or artifacts, that's really powerful. So say you have a Kiora plus what was it, Vivian's Arcbow, right? You tap Vivian's Arcbow. Could you do that? Probably not. Well, you could essentially, if you had enough mana, you could do Vivian's Arcbow twice with Kiora, which is interesting, right? Then we have our planes. Then we have our lands. I'm sorry, which all look very, very awesome, if I might say so myself. And then we have our special lands down here at the bottom. So kicking this off, we have Emergency Zone, which I don't really see getting played that often. So tap adds 1 colorless mana, or you can pay 1 mana and tap and sacrifice Emergency Zone. You may cast spells this turn as though they had flash. So you're losing a land, but you can cast spells as though they had flash. Again, I don't really see it getting picked up or played that much. It is going to be an uncommon land. So, moving on to another uncommon land, we have Interplanar Beacon. So whenever you cast a Planeswalker spell, you gain 1 life. If you tap it, adds 1 colorless. If you pay 1 and tap it, add 2 mana of different colors. Spend this mana only to cast Planeswalker spells. Okay, so it's kind of like a mana fixing, plus if you're playing a Planeswalker heavy deck, which probably should be a lot of those come this set, then it should be pretty good, right? Gaining 1 life doesn't seem like a whole lot, but it will help offset that aggro. You know, 1 life can make all of the difference in the world. 100% true. So then we'll move on to our first rare land of the set, Karn's Bastion. So tap and add 1 colorless mana, pretty standard for these colorless lands. And then we can also pay for and tap it to proliferate. So yeah, it just pretty much works better in your Planeswalkers decks. If you have a Planeswalker / Saga deck, it should be great in that. Seems like okay, and I could definitely see it being played in constructed for sure. Not sure if it'll, well, I could see it getting picked up and limited as well if they give you the chance to pick it. So yeah, that's going to be all the cards that have been revealed thus far from the War of the Spark set. I hope you people, I always go to say you guys, but I want to include everybody. So hope you all enjoyed, and ooh, try not to do that. I always forget that I need to do that at the end of my recording. I usually do it, you know, right after the matches so I can get ready to, you know, end the video out. But if I do it while I'm doing screen capture, then you see what you just saw, the whole like domino effect of screens reflecting each other. Nonetheless, I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a like down below and a comment in the comment section for, I don't know, suggestions on decks y'all may have for me to build, even if they include cards that we covered yesterday, or cards that maybe have been revealed but weren't or aren't quite on Scryfall yet. I think Scryfall stays pretty up to date, so I feel pretty safe in saying that these should be all the cards that have been revealed or spoiled thus far. So yeah, if y'all have any decks you're sort of brewing up in mind and you'd like to share them, be sure to leave them down in the comment section. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. It is free, it does help the channel. We're trying to hit 1,000 just as a general goal. I'd love to hit it before, you know, May, if at all possible. I was hoping to hit it before the end of April, but now that we're in April, you know, the end is nigh. No, the end is going to be here sooner than what I'm expecting, at least. The whole first part of this year has pretty much flown by, but I've been pretty busy with, you know, staying on YouTube and moving and all that good stuff. So yeah, that's gonna do it for today's video, and as always, I'll either see y'all later tonight or tomorrow. Peace.